Whether you're just getting started or if you're a seasoned veteran, Huddle makes it easy to use video and stats to help your team improve by focusing on what matters most. We'll show you how. Getting video online is simple. You can upload games and practices as recorded in the Huddle app, or use the camera you know and love to upload later. Regardless of how it's captured, your coaches and players will have immediate access from any device. Adding stats makes mindlessly scrubbing through that video a thing of the past. If everyone is struggling with boxing out, apply filters to quickly create a playlist for the team to review. You can also narrow it down to each player's highs and lows and share one-on-one. Add comments and drawings to help them see exactly what needs to improve. Reports bring your team's stats to life. Break down every game or any combination of games to analyze team and individual performance. Interact with the shot chart to see who does well from specific zones, or check the trends report to visualize progress over the course of the season. The best part, every number is linked directly to video so you can see the stats in action. How stats are tracked is totally up to you. Use an iPhone or iPad to track stats live or later as you rewatch the game. You can also send the video to Huddle Assist and let our professional analysts break it down in under 24 hours. Athletes can create highlights of their best moments to share with fans and recruiters. Huddle even has built-in messaging tools to keep everyone in touch between practices and seasons. It's all designed to help your team improve in less time than ever before. Start your free trial today.
Welcome everybody. Welcome back. Our day 8. Delighted to have Alan Keane here. But before we get into that, just a couple of logistics. Candlelight in the background for our frontline workers, as promised. Doing a great job, and I think the whole globe really at 9 p.m. last night was really focused on that, and I think that's important for us as well. So I look forward to that. Before we get into it, just want to announce a couple of other things. Can you see that there, Alan? Can you see the guests coming up?
On the right-hand side, it's got attendees, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm sharing screen, but we'll work on that in a while. So just a couple of things coming up next week. I'm happy we've got Alan tonight. We've got Danny Nelson on Tuesday. He's going to be talking about developing the players in pick and roll, 5 players in the pick and roll. Tommy O'Mahony, silver medalist, winning with the under-18s a couple of years back. He's going to talk about transition defense. And on Sunday, I'm waiting to get confirmed, but I'm very, very excited by what we're planning for next Sunday. And it's going to be a real digression, and I'm really excited by it. And then we got Mike Bree on Tuesday the 21st. And then, don't laugh, but we're talking to the referees on Thursday the 23rd. Our 2 FIBA officials, Emma Perry and Magic, are going to talk about the 0-step, transition fouling, allowable contact, and player-coach referee relationship. So I had a good discussion with Paul Dempsey last night on where we're going to take that, and I think it's very important in the off-season we understand where the referees are coming from as well, and how we can take advantage as coaches on that. So we might delve into that a little bit with Alan in a while. But I'd like to welcome Alan Keane. And I guess I know I was only thinking about this the other day, Alan. I think it was 2000 when we first met, when you were working in the complex, and I was a first year in the IT in Tralee. So imagine that 20 years ago. And then I think we kind of spoke for a couple of years. Then you went to the UK, and then I think we met at the Euros in Sarajevo. And when Josh Steele that year, and I think he ends up at Duquesne. And then we kind of came across each other again in Cherbourg, actually this day last year, believe it or not.
This day last year?
Yeah, this day last year. So it's time goes quickly. So Alan Keane, a tremendous journey. You know, moved to the UK, got involved with the GB pathway. Under 16 GB men head coach, was assistant first. How many promotions, Alan? 3 promotions?
I think, yeah, 3. Yeah, if you say retaining the status, probably 3. Yeah, we retained Division A status under 18 twice, and I've been at under 16 Division A twice, and actually relegated both times under 16s.
Yeah. So multiple medals, European medals. Also, current head coach of the Reading Rockets in the second tier in the UK. Also, right now in charge of the Medeski Academy at Reading as well, and has a master's in basketball coaching science, European coaching basketball science. Is that right, Alan? And
That's correct,
also currently doing his doctorate as well in coaching. So very, very massive wealth of experience. I'm fired up for this. I think we're very fortunate in this country that we have players that can play at international level. I think we might just get that 1% advantage from stuff that Alan is talking about in the European Championships. So, Alan, over to you. Delighted to have you. And get your notebooks out, fellas and ladies. All right. Thanks for being Alan.
Well, Paul, first of all, you humbled me, mate. So I need to clarify. Will I share my screen now, Paul? Will I?
You can indeed, yeah.
Yeah. I'll need to clarify a few things there. Are you seeing the presentation, Paul? Yeah.
Indeed.
All right. I'll just enlarge it, but I'll continue to talk just for a second. Yeah, Paul. I appreciate your what you said there. In terms of the amount of experience I have and things I've been lucky to do, really, Paul. But I want to be very clear that my journey started with back in Tralee with Shawnee Burrows. If I look back to the coaches I had, that kind of modeled how I wanted to be as a coach. I just want to pay it forward at the start of this presentation that people like Gat Carey, Pat Carey, Shawnee Burrows, Bill Dorn. I guess there'll hopefully be a few people remember Bill. Paddy Kassan. These guys really, they opened the gym for me, number one. But they also, what they didn't realize at the time is they modeled the kind of coach that I aspire to be today, and I'm nowhere near it. Shawnee Burrows was a far superior coach when he coached when I was a teenager than I am now. So, and Gat Carey as well, and Pat Carey, the great times down in presentation school. So I'm very grateful to those guys. I'd give anything to sit at the bar and have a few pints with those guys and talk basketball. Now I hope that day will come at some point anyway. But yeah, I just want to pay it forward. And thanks, Paul. You made me sound better than I actually am, mate. To be honest, I'm screwing this up on a daily basis, but I think I'm failing forward, as they say. Paul, will I just crack on? And at any point, you just want to stop me, maybe, and ask a question or dig a little bit deeper. Is that how you want to operate with this?
Yeah, we do that. That's kind of format. We took one of our presenters yesterday, so that was kind of cool. So yeah, we'll rock on to on it.
All right, buddy. Well, I'm going to share with you guys. I guess it's threefold, really. And one of the things Paul asked me to talk about was, what do I see in the European with the European Championships I've been to, and I'll give a bit of a backstory. I think this summer would have been my 11th or 12th European Championships, and it would have been with the under-20s in Division A, which would have been really exciting because there's another level up. You're dealing with mostly pro players there in Division A, and at that age level anyway. But the experiences I'll talk about mostly will have been acquired there the past 2 years under 18 Division A. And we were lucky that we got to the top 8 both years, and I need to put that into context, really, Paul, because in the Division A European Championship you have 16 teams, and it's the top 16 in Europe. So Spain, Serbia, Turkey, France, all those type of teams, and you just have to win one game to survive and stay in Division A the following year. It sounds crazy, and the system's really flawed, actually, to be fair, because if I go back to 2018. We finished higher than Spain. Now, the reality is Spain is so far away from us, we can't even measure the distance in terms of, their ability and our abilities and their competency and ours. Like there's no comparison whatsoever. So it's kind of flawed in a way. If you win, basically every team goes through to the second round. So you play in your groups, and, first in Group A will play fourth in Group B in a second round game, and same for Group C and D and so on. And if you win that second round game, you go automatically to the top 8. So 2 years ago, we finished 7th. We beat Montenegro in the opening game, and then we beat Finland in the second round game. We finished 4th in our group. Finland finished top, and they were in the same group as Spain, which is unbelievable. Actually, sorry, we finished 3rd in our group. Montenegro finished 4th. Spain finished top of their group, and Finland finished 2nd. So we played Finland in the second round, and we managed to win that one. It was a close one down the stretch. So we ended up in the top 8, and we played Latvia in the quarterfinal. and I'll share a little story about that one, Paul. Playing Latvia in a 10,000, 12,000 seater stadium, and Porzingis is sitting across the way from your bench, and you've got half the Latvian national team sitting there. It's quite a daunting task. And I remember having a conversation with one of our players' dads who played for Bobby United Indiana for 4 years. Mark Robinson's his name. He played in the BBL years ago. His son was on the team with us, and I remember having a chat with him after the Euros. And he said to me, like, how did you feel about that quarterfinal game? And I said, the reality is, Mark, I wasn't ready for it. I mean, forget about the players. The players weren't ready for it. Like, the atmosphere was too loud. It was too much. The style of game was too much for us. The coach out-coached me as well. That's reality. And I said to Mark after, I said, the only way you can prepare for what I faced that day was to actually coach in the quarterfinal of the European Championship. And I was hoping this past summer we would have taken one step further, and I believe we left it behind us. We got to the top 8 again, and we ended up playing Slovenia in the quarterfinal. And they bronze medal as it turned out. But going into that game, it was the first time that summer that I felt we can truly beat this team. And I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, our opening game was against Turkey, and we lost it by 41 points. And I was going into that game against Turkey going, like, having scouted them relentlessly and probably too much, a bit forensic. We knew that we've got a battle on our hands here. And, you played them 100 times. You could lose 100 times, but you're not going to win more than 1 or 2. So when we went into the Slovenia game, the quarterfinal, I truly felt that we had a good shot at this. Because why? I looked at the style of game they had. I looked at the personnel they had. Technical, tactical, yeah, you've got all that stuff. But really, the style of game, identifying the style of game and identifying the personnel was the 2 biggest things we do. And based on that, I felt that we've got a great shot here to get to a medal game, get to a semi-final for the first time ever. And we didn't. We lost that game. I think we led in the 4th at a point, and then we lost it probably by 15 or something, or 12 or 14. Anyway, I think it was 14. And the thing is, for me, what I'm getting to is expectations. And there's a score on your screen right now. Paul, are you seeing the presentation before I continue?
Yeah, definitely. See the 2 boys shoulder bump it.
There's a score on that screen that says Serbia 85, Great Britain 87. Now, anyone that knows European basketball would have to rub their eyes to see if that score is correct. And that was the game. That was the second game of that tournament. And now remember, in the first game we lost to Turkey by 41 points. And in the second game we played Serbia, and Mate Okris, who's now at Drexler and starting actually Division 1 mid-major, he was injured. He got injured in the Turkey game. And we went into that game without him and Cameron Hildreth, who's probably the most talented junior player to ever come out of the UK, who's still bottom age, got another year here. And, we went into that game without those 2, and we had nothing to lose. Backs to the wall. We lost by 41. Everybody, including their great-grandparents, knew we were losing the game figured we were losing the game to Serbia. And we ended up sending that game into overtime and winning by 2. And what I want to say about that is expectation. After losing to Turkey by 41, no one had it. There was no expectation. Like our preparation games, we got blown out against Russia, blown out against France. We managed to beat Italy. We went 1-5 in our preparation games. And going into the tournament, there's no expectation. There was no pressure on us, really, other than the pressure we put on ourselves, because nobody expected us to do well or to do anything. And we ended up beating Serbia in day 2. And what that did for us, it actually put a shackle on us a little bit, really. Everyone's celebrating. Look at the players here. To say they shocked themselves might be an understatement. But I remember walking out of the change room, get back on the bus to go back to the hotel, thinking, this is great. And this is, like people are saying, it's historical. You beat Serbia. Great Britain has never beaten Serbia at under 18 level. Our under 20s had beaten them about 3 weeks before that, actually, in Division A under 20s. And that was the first time GB had beaten Serbia ever, I believe, at any in male, female. So I was thinking, going back in the bus, this could be a shackle for us, really. It could weigh us down, because now the expectations, the messages I was getting from home were ridiculous. Like, you guys can go on and medal, you can do this, you can do that. And Germany put us in our place the following night. They brought us back down to earth. So that's the reality of where we're at with Great Britain basketball in comparison to our European counterparts. And I just want to share the context of it. What I'm going to share with you in the presentation is, let me just click on this, see if it moves along. what I want to share with you in the presentation is like observations that I've had. And I did this clinic a couple of weeks ago with the virtual coaches clinic, and I'm not going to take you through exactly what I did that night in case some of you've seen it, but I will be showing similar slides and making similar points. The other thing I want to say, Paul, before I get onto this, I'm going to share 5 areas. So I'm going to talk about post play, back to the basket guys, particularly big guys. I refer to guys because I coach males, so please allow that if you don't mind. And then I'm going to talk about guard play, what we noticed at the European Championship, the guards, what were the key traits, what were the separating factors between their players and our Great Britain players. And then I'll talk a little bit about offense, defense, and ball screen. What I'll do, Paul, if you don't mind, I've taken the video off that I showed on the virtual coaches clinic because it was stalling. And every clinic I've watched online during this lockdown phase, the video stalls and you don't get to actually see what's happening. So I've done a voiceover on those videos to share with our academy players. So what I can do, Paul, is after this presentation, I can retransfer that across to you, and you can filter, you can disseminate it to whoever you want after that. And I'll be talking over the video, which emphasize the points I wanted to emphasize if we were watching the video now. So first thing I want to say about post play is it's alive and well. You know, I was hearing for years, you know, that the back to the basket game is dead. You know, at Division B, we probably found we recognized that as well. Division B under 18s. We did recognize that the 5-man was probably down the pecking order of importance. But actually at Division A, every one of these teams, their top 2 players always included the 5-man. And why? Because they were very skilled. Like, you know, you're looking at a 7-foot 18-year-old, 17-year-old playing with the skill set of a guard, you know. And if you look at Turkey's 5-man, Turkey had 2 bigs. One was really young, a 16-year-old that played under 16s as well, and his level of athleticism was as good as any guard in that tournament. And then on the other extreme, at the other end of the extreme, you had their other big, who was a pure back to the basket, heavy set type player, who had the moves of a Kevin McHale type of old-fashioned post player. And the skill set allowed them to bring a lot of value to the team in terms of what? Well, in terms of scoring, yes, number one, they could get position inside. Their timing and the decision when to step across, when to seal, how to use their center of gravity, you know, how to protect the ball when they catch it, you know, transferring the ball from where they received it to a threat position, you know, and scanning the floor, the ability to see the floor and see cutters and see different options, and just the ability to be poised under pressure. But then that brings me on to the point about pressure release. You know, anytime we press the guards in our style of game, which I'll talk about a little bit later, we were very aggressive in pressuring the guards. You know, we'd pick them up early. We were trying to steal time off the shot clock more than anything. But it became fruitless at times. When we got to the top 8, it became a different beast. I think that's the other thing I want to clarify. The top 8 teams in Europe at these championships take the game to a whole nother level. It's not the same game that you play when you play those teams who are vying for survival. And for us last year, the teams that were vying for survival were Croatia, believe it or not, Italy, they managed to survive. And then you had teams like Holland, who were incredibly good, actually. Finland, you know, you had those teams trying to survive in Division A. But when you get to the top 8, it's just incredible how much the talent level goes up, the ability of the players. And in terms of the back to the basket post player, I like to describe it as their ability to offer a pressure release, whether it's in the high post because of whatever action you trap on a ball screen or whatever, and the opposite big just flashes to the high post and hits the guy in the back cut on the weak side, or would hit a guy turning to the opposite corner and hit a baseline cutter. The vision, the ability to make the pass, the timing of it, on time, on target, superb. But it all stems from their ability to handle the ball. These 5 men had incredible ability. And I'm not talking about ball handling ability like you would with a guard. I'm talking about the ability to catch a bad pass, the ability to control a bad pass, the ability to transfer the ball, like I said to you, to the area they will be most dangerous at. And that stood out a mile. Deep ceiling, yes, it's easy to say that. Backing somebody down, it's easy to say that, but it's the timing. It's understanding the synergy between that player and his teammates who is going to provide the opportunity to him with a pass. just the synergy. And I get that's a two-way process. So it's not just about the bigs, and I'll talk about the guards in that regard in a moment. But the other thing that stood out a mile, Paul, was their screening ability. You know, when these guys set screens, it wasn't for the sake of setting a screen. You know, if you watch it close enough, the angle, why that angle, dependent on how the defense is playing, the technical competency of the screen, it being low, it being wide, what to do after they set the screen, roll, pop, rescreen. And then you're back to the stuff we were all hearing a lot about recently, you know, the dribble handoffs, the get actions, just an incredible ability to do that stuff really well. And we didn't have that, like, you know, and that's not to critique our big guys, but in our country, and I guess it's similar to home, Paul, we don't have over here big guys who will go up against big guys with that skill set, so they don't develop it. Because what they're going up against here, like I had Theo Hughes with us last year, who did an incredible job. And he was very smart. He's one of the smarter guys we've had, in Hosanna Katenge a few years ago. Those guys in the UK don't have the level of competition they need in order to develop the skill set. They can just catch the ball in the three-point line and back a guy all the way down, you know, or they'll just go get 3 offensive rebounds in a row, and the competition level is too easy for them to develop. Our guards develop a lot quicker over here than our bigs do. Our bigs don't. Their development's a little bit stunted on two hands, to be honest. On one hand, you don't have the competition. On the other hand, you don't have coaches who have the competency to develop post players. Then we're not used to developing post players in this country. But yeah, and the other thing is we try to double team guys. It just came to life there in my head when I saw the last point I put up there. We would try to double team guys in the post. Like we played against Osman Garuba from Spain, who played for Real Madrid after this championships and played in the EuroLeague. And you know, he's a bottom age player, 2002, and he's playing in the EuroLeague and doing amazing things. But we try to double team a player like that, and you know, we got to the point where we were thinking, you know what, actually, we probably have damage limitation if we do single coverage, because as soon as you double these guys, like I said to you, the skill set is incredible. They have the poise, the composure, and the ability to expose you out of that double team. You know, and then the guys off the ball, it's a two-way thing. It's synergy. They're cutting, and these guys are making the on-time, on-target pass. The other thing I noticed with these big guys, and I never really thought about it like this before. You know, if you asked me a couple of years ago to talk to me about offensive rebounding, I'd say it's will and desire. It's toughness, it's strength, it's an ability to pursue the basketball. I still believe that all those components are really important, but I think they are limited unless you have something else. And what is that something else? And it's a skill. It's a skill, Paul. What I noticed with these guys, when you break it down and study it in a little bit more detail, and again, it'll come to life on the video a bit more when I send it through to you and I talk over the video. Their reaction time and their positioning, but not just, it's easy to say we got to get position, but how to use their center of gravity, their weight, their body against the guy trying to block them out. And then you bring the hands in. So the footwork and the balance, like it was an incredible skill. So now we're down to how do you develop it? And you're talking about developing their footwork, developing their balance, developing their ability to use their body against somebody else. You know, they call it KOB, keep on body kind of thing. And well, how can you manipulate and how can you manipulate and maneuver another person, like instead of just being a forceful push. But then you're down, and what's last? It's their hands, it's their ability just to keep the ball. A bit of it like Dennis Rodman, just tipping it to yourself, and you know, and your ability to control the ball that way. Invaluable, really invaluable to a team, Paul. And I'm saying all this to you actually, having us led the tournament in offensive rebounds. And we didn't have these type of bigs that had this skill set with offensive rebounding. So we put a different system in, which is tagging up. And you guys have heard loads about that, I'm sure, at this point. And I'll unpick that a little bit later. Guard play. So I'll go through the same sort of process. You know, composure is an understatement. Poise under pressure, understatement. Just an unbelievable. Actually, when you break it down, Paul, these guys back themselves, an air of confidence. Why confidence? Because they do it on a daily basis, you know. And guys on the call who've been to Spain and seen what they do in their clubs in the Estudiantes and Valencia and these different places. If you haven't been to Valencia, by the way, wow, we spent 2 weeks there at Christmas with our academy program. I've never seen anything like it. You know, you go into, they have a 9-court facility right next to the ACB stadium, and it's like a conveyor belt of players just coming in and out from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. that night. And I remember going over there many evenings when we didn't have anything on with our academy guys, or, you know, we'd go over there sometimes with them and make them. We just sitting down watching under 10 practice, and it'd blow you away. You know, kids trying to make, you know, passes off the dribble one hand, you know, trying to throw it half the length of the court but failing, and it's encouraged. We've heard it all before. But these guards at Division A European Championship, I would describe them as poised and composed under pressure. And the last thing I would describe them as is as purposeful. These are purposeful players who do what they do because it adds value to the team. So what are we talking about? Ability to use the dribble more efficiently, you know, less dribbles to go further. So our point guard this year, let's look at him as the opposite. Very effective for us, played for me with Reading, David Chive. He was a lockdown defensive player, and you know, he could guard somebody baseline to baseline. He plays with our men's team, which is made up of seven full-time pro guys. Well, it ended up being 6 this year because one got injured, and then the rest is made up of academy players. But he ended up being our best on-ball defensive player because of his ability to change direction, and he's physically strong and durable, but he's mentally tough. But when you put the ball in his hands on offense, for every dribble a European guard needed to take, David would take 10. And I've been coaching David since he's 12, so I'm looking in the mirror on that one, and that's not about David or some other coach. That's about me, you know. And these European guards don't do that. They don't dribble the ball for the sake of dribbling. It's a purposeful dribble, and it's a dribble that adds value to what they're doing on offense. But the game slows down for them, and they make great decisions. So what do they make great decisions with? The second point I want to raise is their ability to finish, when to take the shot, what type of shot to take. And then when you go inside that, like, we didn't have guards that could make floaters, that, you know, could finish off one step, one hand pickup without bringing the offhand to the ball. You know, the ability to knock down the mid-range game. Like, people go into drop coverage a lot these days. It's quite fashionable, isn't it? Drop coverage on ball screens. Well, actually, that's a whole different topic in itself, because the mid-range game is dead. But actually, if the trend is that the majority of teams are going into drop coverage most of the time, we should be developing mid-range shooters, surely, to attack that coverage. That's a whole different conversation. But what I'll show you in the video is, like, there's, you know, we didn't go into drop coverage. We were always a hard show because we wanted to control the game with our defense more than our offense. We didn't have the ability to control the game with our offense, so we wanted to do with our defense, and that's why we hard show every time. But then you're back to the bigs in that moment where, you know, these guys are slipping screens and the ball is out of their hands quick, or they'll triangle it out when it exit pass on the front side or a pass on the back side, and then they're hitting the short roll, and now you're hitting corner cutters, and, you know, they pick you apart in different ways. You try to find ways to tip the balance or keep it in your favor by doing different things. But I digressed a little bit on that one. But the guard's ability to finish in the paint with contact was another one that stood out. Ability to get in the paint, whether it was go off 1 foot or 2 feet. And I've seen both. The French guard was incredible. Actually, all the French guards were incredible. Physically very strong. Ability to beat the first line of defense with effective and efficient, purposeful use of the dribble. And then an ability to go into a big's body, take the contact, remain on balance, and get the shot off. You know, and there's a lot of those type of clips in the video I'll send you, but that really was the separating factor between us. We had guards that could get in the paint, get past the first line wasn't an issue. The issue was we didn't have guards who were good enough to absorb contact and get the shot off. We didn't have guards that could knock down that mid-range pull-up at a decent percentage, at an acceptable percentage where you would go to it. And we definitely didn't have guards that had a floater game or Euro step or different type of moves on the move. There was loads of evidence of, on top of that or inside in that, plenty of evidence of everything off one hand, you know, and we hear it a lot as well. And I know Chris Oliver's a big advocate of it, and you know, the San Antonio Spurs talk about 0-second actions or 0.5 or play off the catch kind of thing. But if you look at the Spain's of the world, Slovenia's guard who had a triple-double against us in the quarterfinal, any of the guards, pick it, Turkish guards, French guards, Serbian guard, one guy was 6'9", Serbian guard, you know, they played him a lot at the 3, but, you know, he handled the ball in transition, would make a pass off the dribble. I remember the Spanish guard coming down the lane against us, and we're rotating over to help, and he doesn't take, it's off a half step and a pickup with his one hand pickup and finish, so the ball is out of his hands before the help even gets there. And there was just, that stood out a lot. There was a lot of playing with one hand, whether it was off the pass, whether it was a pickup and finishing, but it just made the game really quick and very fast and difficult to recover when you were beat, or difficult to rotate to take away the play, or difficult to get back in transition because they're passing off the dribble in transition. And the other thing that we faced a lot of was multi-skilled guards, not just on the perimeter, but inside. And these are bigger guards, Paul. Like Serbia's 3-man was 6'9", 6'10". Russia's 4-man would play on the perimeter. Actually, Russia's 5-man. I mean, pick your poison. They played inside, they played outside. Pick and pop, post you up. But if you look at the other guards, like the French guards, the ability and the strength, the conditioning to go down in the post and post you up. Serbia's guards weren't physically strong enough to beat us in the post with the physical game, but the ability to back you down and make a turnaround jump shot, to make an up and under move. The footwork was incredible, and then finishing different ways, a lot of wrist action, a lot of control with the pads. And speaking to an ex-Real Madrid player who's been retired now about 20 years, when we were on a trip to Spain last year with the academy, we went to Madrid for a week and Barcelona for a week, and then we had a great talk with a guy who's with, I forget his name, Brabender. I forget his first name, but his name is Brabender. American guy, came over, settled in Spain, and he spent the whole session with our guys just talking about finger pad control, with finishing around the basket and a lot of wrist action. And it's what you see, it's what you see from these guys. Like I said to you, we try to trap the ball screen loads, we hard hedge loads, and even in the full court, we just to control the rhythm of the game. Our objective was to control the rhythm of the game and remain in control of the game that way, by changing rhythms and changing tempos. So sometimes we would trap out of a 1-2-2 zone press. Sometimes we'd run and jump, but after a while, you kind of go like, is this diminished returns? Like, are we losing value for money here? Because guards would split the trap so easy. I mean, I watched other teams do it as well. Like France are traditionally aggressive, athletic team, and they really force the tempo of the game and try to control the tempo. But even those guards were getting split so easy, and it was a lot to do with the setup. So they know it's coming. The eyes are up when they're dribbling. They can see the threat. They can see the danger. There's no one dribbling with their head down at that level. And they bait you into it. So the traps come, and they're happy to see it coming because they're setting it up as you're coming, and then they'll make a quick move to the outside, in and out, and then split it through the middle. And it was just really effective and nice to watch. And as soon as the ball comes out, as soon as they come out of the trap, the ball is coming out of their hands. They're maximizing the advantage. Nobody's hanging on to the ball longer than they need to hang on to it. And I've already talked about the last point, I think there, Paul, is there's a lot of bigger guards at that level, like big guards. And it made me come back home the past couple of years thinking, like, I had a guy at JMA the past 2 years, I think he was there 3 years, and he's like 6'5", in the EABL and even in our Division 1 men's level, you could put him down in the post, and you kind of look back, and it's like Sam Grant for us right now is 6'9" and can shoot the hell out of three. He'll play Division 1 college basketball probably just because of his shooting ability. But actually, he's big enough to put him on the low post, but he's also not big enough at the next level, at this level, for example, to do damage just in the post. He's got to be able to do it from the perimeter. And it just reminded me, coming back to the club, I was talking to some of the, Josh Thorne and Ben Fisher, who coached the younger teams, like, we've got to develop the global player, who's inside, and just develop a skill set. Let's not pigeonhole too much. And he's big now for this club, but if we want him to go on and play well, he ain't big at the next level for where he's going. So just different things that help us consider things moving forward. I'll fly through these. Sorry, Paul, go for it, bud.
What I might do is I might just kind of go back and question on those two slides, because there's a lot to unpack in those two things in one respect.
Go for it, mate.
But I suppose in terms of the forwards position,
yeah,
a lot of the analytics say that and you might have alluded to this during it, is that the post game has gone in terms of scoring. So it's a 3-point or an uncontested layup. What's now coming out though from the analytics is that in terms of using the post play, it's about inverting the offense. So and Suzanne referred to this during the week in terms of your post players being your best passers, one of your best decision makers, essentially a point guard in a different spot of the floor. How much of that came through at European level at the 16s A and B and 18s A and B?
Well, the 16s A is quite a while ago, Paul, and I wasn't thinking like I'm thinking now, and regretfully so. But having watched Division A under 16 recently, the past couple of years, I believe from my perspective, you are seeing skilled big men who could be playmakers. Like it's a bit like I said to you earlier, you know, the pressure release option could be your go-to option. So you look at something like, I don't know, flow offense, let's say, or, you know, some of the stuff that New Zealand do with the flat screen, and, you know, the big man flashing up to the high post is almost, and it's not no longer a pressure release, it's a go-to action. The thing is, Paul, we didn't have that, we don't have that, but all these other European teams absolutely had. And I'd flip it on its head as well and say, instead of just using the post player as your playmaker, you know, so inverting the offense, starting from the inside, be it the low post or the high post or the short corner, where you see the whole floor anyway, as opposed to just that. And I think that's becoming very trendy, but it can only be trendy if you have the talent to do it. We don't have the talent to do it, so we won't be able to do it, no question. But what we can do, and what I tried to do this year with our men's team, more towards the latter half of the season, was invert our offense, but put our guards inside, and let's play from in there. Let's get our guards in the high post, not just like you would against the zone, but against man to man. We drew up a few offenses or tweaked a few where we had the guard playing from inside first as opposed to from outside. And traditionally, and last year we were lucky enough, actually, if I think about our men's team last year, Danny Carter played the five for us, who's a very good passing big man. He's retired now. And we kind of got a little bit of it with him. We'd run a lot of stuff through him because he was a willing passer and he was a good passer. So yeah, I mean, the analytics are there, but they're not there if you don't have the players. That's the reality. I mean, in the NBA and in the EuroLeague, and if you watch Champions League and you watch Harpal Jerusalem, like they you know, Kadesh plays with that 3-out 2-in system for a reason. He's got big men who are smart, who are intelligent, and who can play from that position and be the creator.
Right. Like, I mean, Jan's one of our Super League coaches with Marion, and he would always say in Greece, and that's why I probably kind of stopped you with these two slides. You can't have a team without a point guard and the five. Everything else you can work around, but you just can't be successful without a 1 or 5. Now, in saying that, you spoke about timing between the post player and the rest of their teammates. And I suppose that flows into what Puff is looking at. How do you teach your posts to be poised from the double post and stuff like that? Do you teach that through small-sided games? You teach it through 5-and-5? You do it versus on O, or how do you guys work on that?
Well, the thing is, it's a bit like I said to you at the start. How do you prepare as a coach to coach well at a Division A quarterfinal? And like I said to you, this year in the quarterfinal, I was a lot more prepared and ready for what that would feel like than I was the previous year, which was our first year getting to a Division A quarterfinal. And if you bring that concept to the players' world, what does that look like? What is that in the players' world? It is putting them into their real life situation. And I'm not just, I think the easy thing, Paul, is the small-sided games, the constraints-led approach, play more 5-and-5, less on-air drills, but actually just go to them in a game where the win and loss matters. So for us at Division 1 men, the wins and the loss matters. They matter. You know, they really do. We got pro guys who want to go on and make more money somewhere else. So actually a winning record and losing record in their eyes has a big impact on that. But at the same time, too, as a coach, if I'm true to my principles and values, I have a fundamental responsibility to develop the skill set of the guys on our team. So our principle and concepts and values at Reading is we'll play 6 EABL kids, or 5 at least, on the Division 1 men's roster, which is made up of 6 or 7 pro guys. Trey Pemberton was with us last year, who played in Ireland, that you guys will know, and Adrian O'Sullivan as well, too, did an amazing job. But if we're going to develop a passing 5-man, a 5-man who can pass the ball, Yeah, you're right. Small-sided games, 5-on-5 in practice, constraints in the practice, however you want to do it, affordances, it's all out there. But actually, how often are we brave enough to do that in a game? So Sam Grant, for example, like I said to you, it's easy to put him on the perimeter for us this year because he's a 6'8", maybe. He's a 6'8" who can really shoot the three like incredibly well. But actually, he's not very effective in the post. Well, I put him in the post a couple of times before he got injured this year at the start of the season, Division One men, and he did all right. He surprised people. But I think it's easy to do it the way you said, Paul, and everyone sings from that hymn sheet. Mike McKay, you know, he's reaching the world more and more and more every year, and he's selling the value in a very good way that people can connect with, that the on-air drills need to have a limited time factor in your practices. They do serve a purpose, but it's limited, and you've got to get to the 3-on-3s, the 4-on-4s, 1-on-1s, whatever it may be, small-sided games. But then what about the next step? What about putting them in that situation when the game matters? Because that's where the true development and growth takes place. That's where the biggest learning and the biggest value can come from.
Very good, very good. There's one more question here, but that's kind of like an end of presentation scenario or question. But I think, you know, and I suppose if anybody's heard the podcast with Mike Procopio, he speaks about the one dribble, and you mentioned that with the purposeful guards. You know, your guy taking 10 dribbles, whereas the Spanish and French guards are taking one.
Mm-hmm.
As coaches, do we emphasize, as you identified, the 0.5 offense, the quick reversals, the use of that 1 or 2 dribble max to get the best out of their skill set where it's become purposeful? As coaches, have you seen that we don't do it in Ireland or the UK to help us reach that level?
We definitely don't do it in this country. And Paul, on that point, I'm so intrigued to know more about what's happening back home. You know, and you know, I'm ashamedly, I mean, I drove Adrian O'Sullivan nuts last year, and Rowan O'Sullivan and Trey Pemberton, trying to find out as much about what's it like back home now, because I'm so out of touch with it. And you know, the problem with working with a national team is I don't get home as much anymore in these breaks in the season and in the summer. But so I can't speak for you guys, but I know over here, I watched our under-18 Cup final in January, and you know, you had 2 of the better teams in the country going up against each other, under-18s, and there's no evidence in that game that players are playing effectively off the catch. So be it a stab dribble, as Chris calls it, or pop it, or get it out of your hands, kind of get it to the floor as quick as you can on the catch because you've made a decision before the catch. That wasn't prevalent for me in the games I've watched. In our level here at the EABL every Wednesday, so you're talking about our better players in the pathway from age 16 to 19. It's alive with some. You can see some guys have drilled that. It's not a trend. So if it's a trend, we know that it's been done, you know, across the country, and they're going to bring it to a national team. But it's not a trend. And I remember last summer we went to dribble drive, believe it or not, for our go-to offense last year at the Euros. Why? Because we played guys who can handle the ball at the 4 and 5 to give us an advantage. And you know, we put in dribble drive concepts, you know, the single gap, double gap, and all that stuff. And you know, we put in the 1 second rule, where we just said to them, look, as soon as you catch it, you got to put it to the floor, and we would drill it. Even if they had an open jump shot, they had to put it to the floor to drill the habit. Now they can put it to the floor and pull and just shoot it immediately. And I said to the coaches, I'm like, watching the video back, I don't think it slows them down. I don't think it makes them any bit slower than if they caught it and squared up. You know, because as soon as the ball, like David Chai for us was really good at it, and I'll send you across a video where the ball would enter his hands and it's on the floor before, like it's on the floor as his feet are hitting the ground. So say his feet are in the air on the catch. If you slow the video down, the ball is out of his hands before his feet touches the floor. So now he's already got the accelerator down to the floor, and he's taken off before the defense can even get a step taken. So he's already gained a half a second or 1 second or 1 step advantage. And you know, the argument against it always is, well, what if you're wide open? Yeah, if you're wide open, you catch and shoot. But you got to peel it back to what have you done before the catch? What are you seeing before the catch? But to answer your question, Paul, it's not trendy here. I don't see it as a trend, so I don't think it's been developed as much as it could be, because it is a valuable tool for sure.
Yeah. Maybe we might drive on with the next 3 key points, Alan.
Sure, but I'm not going to stay too long on the next three, Paul, because it's basically defense, offense, and ball screens. I'll just share briefly what I think, what we've unpicked from there. Incredible, again, the trend. You know, teams will play great defense for 8. Like we say in the UK, we've got problems here. I watched France and Turkey and Spain like play unbelievable defense for 20 seconds and then fall asleep in the last 2, 3, or 4. You know, it was really surprising. The biggest factor, the biggest contributing factor was the ability to guard the ball 1v1. And that sounds simple and it sounds like common sense. Excuse me. It sounds simple and it sounds like common sense, right? So if we identify that for us and by watching other teams as that being a major influential factor, which is what we felt as a staff, then it begs the question of why don't we, for the want of a better word, I'm all right with the word, by the way, guys, just for the record, why not drill it more? Why do we, like, you know, we go back and audit everything we've done in the camps and in practices, and I'll share with you how we do that in a moment. But like, if this is one, and I was saying this to our staff, if this is one of the most contributing factors, then why don't we spend more time in practice on being better 1v1 defense? And it's something I shared with all the club coaches over here that, you know, I took 2 players this year. I took one player in particular this year who may not have made the team if I just focused on his offense. But his ability to guard the ball brought us so much value that if I didn't bring him and brought somebody who was better on offense, we would have got less value for money from those 2 selections. The other thing that stood out a lot, and we weren't the only team that were able to do it. There was a lot of European teams that it's incredible how well these bigs can guard the perimeter because they have a very good understanding. How can I put this? I would say they self-regulate incredibly well. What do I mean by self-regulation? I mean, they understand themselves, they understand the environment, they really get what their strengths and weaknesses are versus the opposition. So if you look at somebody like Turkey, if you look at Turkey's 5-man, his bottom age, he looks like he's probably 25. He's a bit heavy set, but he's not fast on his feet, let's say. That's what you will see. But yet he does, if in a late clock situation when he switched onto the ball, or when the guard went downhill in a drop coverage and he had to stay in front and limit the direction and the angle to the basket, his ability to do that was really good. And I use him as an example because of the body type. Why? Because a lot to do with it had anticipation. You know, being one step ahead of the guy who's attacking you by anticipating where he is, what he's going to do. Ability to move your feet is huge, absolutely. But the decision making on defense was really good, and we don't talk about that one a lot, do we? But we talk about decision making on offense all the time. But we used to, like I said to you, we played undersized, and we'd switch with 4s and 5s a lot. Our 4s and 5s would switch on the ball, and I think that was the game changer against Montenegro in that second round game this year. It doesn't mean you'll win, but you're a lot more disruptive when you can switch on defense with your 4 and 5 on the perimeter, guys. A big takeaway for me was the bravery of the coaches. These coaches are brave. The disparity, Paul, between Division A and Division B, the level of coaching for sure, I feel. And that's a generalization because obviously there's some outstanding coaches in Division B. But the coach at Division A, really interesting to observe them, watch them. Very different with how they behave, very different what they're like on the sideline. They all differ greatly. But they're smart, incredibly smart. You know, and when you have the privilege to sit down and talk with them after a game or in the hotel or on the rest days, it's really a notepad and pen moment for me personally. But Turkey changed the rhythm of the game, going 1-3-1. Didn't play it all game. Played France in the quarterfinal. Didn't play 1-3-1 the whole tournament. You know, we played them in the first game. I got to know the coach quite well. They didn't play it in three group games. Second round game, didn't play 1-3-1. And they were up 1 with 28 seconds to go or something in the quarterfinal against France. France called a timeout, came out of timeout, and Turkey went 1-3-1. And it was a game changer. But they had a guy at the back of the zone that could cover ground like a track star. And that was a big difference. You know, his ability to get from one corner to the other was incredible. That was an interesting observation. In terms of offense, a lot of actions are quick hitters. You know, there's not a lot of continuity sets. I mean, pick and roll. You couldn't keep count of the amount of times teams play pick and roll. And if you're really, you guys know by now, but if people are not, if you're really interested in watching teams that play a lot of pick and roll, watch Harpo Jerusalem in the Champions League. You know, speaking to Liam Flynn, their assistant coach, he was telling me like I said to him, how many times you guys think you run a ball screen each offense? And he said it's probably on an average of 3 or 4 or 5 ball screens per offense. But it's a lot of quick hitting actions, and there's a lot of, we're back to the strengths and weaknesses, strengths, abilities, and competencies of the players. The players make plays, the coaches put them in those positions, and it wasn't like teams were winning because of their set plays, or there wasn't any like golden moments where, man, that was an incredible set play. You know, with stuff you've seen before. A lot of it was the decoy action to get the ball to the guy at the right time. Saw a lot of stuff with like Iverson cuts, and a lot of stuff out of diamond as well. Some Spain actions. There was a lot of Spain stack ball screen stuff. You know, I saw more of that this year than I did the previous year, because we were saying the previous year we only saw it a couple of times, a handful of times. This year, every team had at least one stack ball screen situation. And it was interesting how teams were defending it. You know, I saw one team triple switch it, which was awesome. But most teams where the guards would just push and stay on the screener, and the guards would switch. Basically, the guard on the ball and the guard setting the stack screen would basically switch. That was how most teams defended it. It's how we defended it. But it was really nice to see one team triple switch it. But they had like for like. I think it was France. They didn't lose anything by triple switching. Middle third ball screen was just like all the time, non-stop. But what was really nice and what was really a pleasure to watch was the guard's ability to pass out a middle pick and roll, whether it was a pocket pass or whether it was, you know, hitting the corner on the front side. But the most impressive one was coming off a middle ball screen and hitting the corner on the backside. You know, that come and say, so top of the key, going to your right, hook pass, cross court to the deep left corner, on time, on target, because you're tagging off the corner on the roll. Their ability to hit the corners in these passes was incredible, and the spacing as well linked to it. But how did we counteract it, or how do we try to limit it, or how should you try to limit it? The airspace on the ball was the most important thing, and I think that's why it really does still surprise me that teams go to drop coverage so much against a good point guard. You know, we played Theo Hughes at the 5 for us, who's a slower 5-man, and you know, with him it had to be drop coverage, and Slovenian guard just picked us apart because there was too much airspace between him and the next defender. So every opportunity that was available, he would see. You know, we're fighting out the ball screens on the 3-point line. We're chasing over the top. We're fighting over. You know, he's using his body to put us in jail and kind of hostage situation. And now, you know, his eyes are open. His eyes are wide, and he sees every option. But yeah, the ability to make the pass and delay the pass as well, Paul, was a big one. So we're back to decision making. And again, we're back to the last point there I already spoke about, so I'm not going to stay on it. Nobody hangs on to the ball. The ball is constantly moving. And the last one there is, if you turn the ball over, you forget about it. You're dead and buried. You know, as soon as you turn the ball over, you need to start thinking about what you're going to do in offense, because these guys are like snipers. You know, they're opportunistic. The bigs get out and run. The bigs run and get in behind the defense incredibly well, even the so-called slow bigs. And then the guards are just getting ahead as well. And the ball is moving. Like, I remember 3 years ago, we played Division B in the final against Croatia. And we were up, I think, 14 at halftime. And everyone's thinking, wow, gold medal, whatever. I think in the change room, we were thinking it too, to be honest, if we're open and honest about it. And came out in the second half, and I felt like we were in a pinball machine. Like, Croatia just took it up a level. Now, they couldn't run with us in terms of athleticism, but the ball moved so quick that I turned around to my assistant coach at one point in time, and I said, Ian, I'm not sure what to do, man. I got to be honest. Like, right now, they're just picking us apart. You know, we use timeouts, and you know, we use subs, we try to foul, we try to change the rhythm of the game, but the ball does not stick. And that's the key part for me with these guys in terms of the difficulty in playing them. Last thing, ball screen. Many teams, even at this level, struggle to defend the open corner ball screen. Why? Because bigs can pick and pop. Bigs can shoot. So we're back to the skill set of the big players and the ability to knock down the shot. You know, when we played Israel 2 years ago in a preparation game, you know, Livingston was his name. I think he's playing good level in Europe at the moment. And they would just keep getting to an open corner ball screen at the end of every offense. And, you know, we were playing our aggressive style and stubborn with it and trying to be aggressive on the ball and hard show and trap it and try to limit the airspace between, you know, the ball handler and the show, the ball handler and the chasing on ball defensive player. We try to limit that airspace and be very disruptive with our hands. but you know, the pass is getting there, whether he was passing off the front sides on a pressure release and then kicking it to the pop, or just hooking it over our heads, or whatever may be the case. And at halftime we said, look, we just got to go pushing under. We'll live with the shot behind the screen, and it worked for us. And you know, I was watching it closely at this European Championship, thinking, you know, why are teams really struggling? And the reason they struggle is because on let's say you have an open corner ball screen on the right side, they were loading up the weak side with 3 shooters. You know, you're dead and buried because you couldn't help off too much. And you know, I think France did it better than everybody else. Why? The low tag guy was able to almost, you know, overhelp and be somewhat closest to the strong side block, and an ability to kind of show like he's going to go and still get back if the pass was made on the front side. So athleticism had a big impact with that one, but you know, you combine that with good decision making. I talked about that point just there. The short rolling ball screens. I watched a lot of Harpo Jerusalem this year, and this is why I've referenced them a few times. I watched pretty much all their games, and what came to life when I watched them, and what came to life at this European Championships was the ability of the guards and bigs to utilize the short roll and now you're back to your question earlier, Paul, the playmaker, be a point forward, be a facilitator from the high post area. And teams utilize this very well, but the key was the guards were able to create a line of pass. Were able to create a line of pass and get to the area on the court where they can execute the right pass and the pass that gets the ball into the high post. And once the ball got into the high post, like, it became very difficult because too many options presented themselves after that, you know, especially when you're loading up shooters on the perimeter in the corner. Were you about to say something, Paul?
No, you're all good. You're all good.
Last few things here to do with the ball screen play, and we'll move on, is you know, players utilize the screens really well. So what do I mean by that? Ability to set a good screen and then the decision to receive the screen the right way. Something we don't do well in this country at all. I mean, it's probably one of the, if I was to make a list of the things we're worst at, where we really struggle is setting and receiving good screens. The partnership of the screen is really poor, and it's really poor mostly from the guards than the bigs, because the guards don't wait, they don't set the defense up, they don't sell opposite, they don't come together to create a partnership of the screen. You know, the sell, set, read, vacate kind of thing. We don't read it, we don't vacate to the right place, but these guys do that particularly well. And we ended up showing our guys in a preparation game when we played France in France. I ended up clipping the French guards off their French team's off-ball screens. And the reason I clipped it was to show to our guys, like, this is what an effective screen looks like. And we would break it down. And then what we did off the back of that was we started statting in the preparation games how many times our guys would set effective screens. And we created a ranking table for who was the best setter and receiver of screens. And it became a bit of a competition. It just emphasized the stuff we needed to be better at and gave the guys a bit of a carrot stick. Will I take you through our style of game real quick, Paul, in terms of why we did what we did, or do you want to stop right there?
No, I think a lot of the questions right. A lot of the questions right now, I think we can hold to the end. It kind of is naturally flowing. So I guess what is it, 2 slides left, maybe 3?
Probably about 13, but I'm joking. I'll fly through a few things, and then Paul, just jump in and stop me at any point in time at all, please, mate, because I don't want to go longer than you planned for.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll try and aim, like, if we can get slides on 5 minutes, then we probably allocate maybe 7 minutes to questions. I think that will get us going then.
Sounds good. So these are the 5 things we emphasized that would bring us most value. You don't see offensive sets in there for a reason, because of the skill set of our players more than anything else. And when I say skill, the decision is obviously part of that. You know, we broke our defensive style of play down into 4 areas. You know, and we broke it down into the segments of the shot clock. So, you know, and these are the terminology you see on the right side of the screens, a lot of stuff that we would talk about in practice. But our four pillars of defense were it started with tagging up on the offensive boards, and that wasn't for us to be a good offensive rebounding team. It did help us to be the best offensive rebounding team in Division A, but it wasn't put in for that reason. It was put in for the reason that we can start our defense early, and then it's into contain, disrupt, and box out. But they're the 4 phases on defense. These are the 3 phases on offense that we bought into, and this isn't stuff I came up with. Warwick Can from Australia helped me out with this. Pace, space, and create. You know, these are the first 8 seconds. We're into that pace phase. What does that look like? Well, it's getting out of the blocks as quick as you can. So how did we develop that in practice? We would do a lot of 5v5, and if you didn't get the ball over the halfway line in 3 seconds, it would be counted as a turnover. And then what we did is we built it up to, if all 5 players weren't in the front court within 3 seconds, it would be a turnover. So you would have to rebound, get an outlet, and get into the front court within 3 seconds, all 5 guys, it would be a turnover. So that's how we built the pace phase, let's say. Space, you're talking about corners and rim and everything else we've always heard. And then the create phase, which basically got down to dribble drive for us, dribble drive spacing more than putting an emphasis on over dribbling. Areas that stood out for us, we had, these are some stats we took from the Euros that, allowed us to measure and give us a barometer of where we were with stuff. We had an average of 20 times we got beaten 1-on-1. So we statted every time you got beaten 1-on-1. In the games we won, the important games we won against Serbia, Montenegro, we got beaten 1-on-1 15 times and 12 times. The Montenegro game, anytime I reference the Montenegro game, it was the game that kept us alive in Division A. It's the game that allowed us to get to the top 8. We only had 12 beaten 1-on-1s in that game. Now, that number will be will relate to the level of the guards you've gone up against for sure, but all these guards can do a hell of a job beating you off the dribble. Now I'm going to talk about why ball screen. We had 6.2 ball screen errors a game. So what? It didn't help us. It was a stupid stat to measure. It was a waste of time. It was diminished return on the time invested. But what it did help us to do is watch closely the problem we were having with ball screens, because to get all these stats, you had to go back and watch a lot of video. And I talked about the problem with that earlier in terms of airspace. A lot from the bigs. The bigs were the biggest issue with the ball screen more than the guards, but they have a harder job. A carrot stick we gave the guys was killed. Every time we would have 2 stops in a game, one of our assistant coaches would stand up and shout out 1 more stop for a kill, and that gave the guys a good kind of carrot stick to really kind of up their energy and intensity on defense and lock in for 1 more possession. And that helped us. These small targets, small wins really helped us to kind of remain composed and focused and concentrated on what we needed to do next. There was a bunch of other things as well. Deflections were really good for us in terms of driving them as a KPI, key performance indicator. Why? Not because it helped us win games, but because it helped us to be better on defense with our hands. So we had a league table of who had the most deflections every game based on the minutes they played. And it just put a big emphasis on actually being better with your use of your hands on defense. Tagging up, as I said to you earlier, proved to be a massive, massive contributing factor to us being a good offensive rebounding team. We led the tournament in offensive rebounding while being the smallest team. However, we also tracked how often, even in practice, we tracked guys, how committed they were to tagging up. So tagging up is basically when the shot goes up, do you play off your front foot or do you play off the back foot? And playing off the front foot is basically just scrum the closest guy to you. So 5s would end up on 1s, but it never hurt you that much. It never hurt us that much because of our versatility in terms of athleticism. And you could switch out of it on the weak side anyway by the time you get back to the paint a lot of the time. We had 30 offensive rebounds against Serbia, and that's incredible. 30 offensive rebounds against Serbia. And it was an overtime game as well, so let's be mindful of that. But we averaged 23 offensive rebounds a game, again showing the value of tagging up. It was the first year we'd really done it as well. Fast break opportunities, we created loads, but we were poor in finishing them. So we created an average of 53 possible points on the break. And that's if we converted 100%, but we were only converting 44% of our fast break opportunities, which tells you a couple of things. Turning the ball over in the break, poor decision making, and poor ability to finish around the basket. Talked about the screening stuff already, measuring that one. Free throws was a big driver. Why? It forced us to play more aggressive, but it didn't mean we won games. We averaged 23 free throw attempts a game, but we only converted 57%. So we're back now to the skill set of our players, or the lack of skill set, and where we're deficient most. Against Serbia, we generated 30 free throw attempts. However, and that was a win, but the loss to Turkey, which we lost by 41, we generated 31 free throw attempts. So it doesn't mean you win games, but it does help you keep the style of game that you're trying to develop and grow. Turnovers always been an Achilles heel for us. We averaged 18 a game, 19 a game. However, I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that, and it might be the same for your teams, Paul, or any national team. The window that you're together is short. So decision making is a problem there because they're getting used to a new system, getting used to playing with new players, and then you put them in the pressure cooker of a European Championship, especially Division A, where the level is like 10 times higher than what they're used to domestically, then the turnover count is going to go up. But as the tournament went on every year, our turnover count would go down. Now, you might be playing worse teams depending if you're fighting for survival or if you're playing top 8, but ours went down to 14 there for the last 2 out of the last 3 games. And then we measured pace. Pace was a big one for us. How many shots can we get off per 40 minutes? But we measured effective pace, which is a thing we just came up with ourselves. And that was a measure of the amount of possessions we had per 40 minutes and how effective we were with those possessions. So not just a case of like, how many possessions can you generate, but how effective and what are you doing with those possessions? And there was other stuff that backed it up. Like the beauty of national team, as you know, Paul, is you've got 2 assistant coaches. The team manager, he knows his stuff as well. So you almost have 3 when you're starting stuff. And I talked about switching defense already. Offensive success rate was defined as an action that got us a good shot. We got a shot off, and it wasn't forced or in the clock. We only had success at getting a good shot off with 39% of the offenses we ran. So if we ran 100, if we called 100 set plays a game, we only got a good shot off inside in that system 39 times. So again, it comes back to, and it was, I'd love to do that with a Lithuania or a Spain, because from the eye test, I would say that the trend was the same for those guys. It wasn't like they were running amazing sets. Like I said, it comes down to the player's ability, player competencies. I'll share this with you real quick. This is some of the stuff we did. So we would audit what we did. And one way we audited it was, or reflected back on how well we knew or they knew, let's say transition defense here. And, a triangle offensive rebounds. This is from 2 years ago where we sent 3 to the boards, 2 get back. We would check with ourselves as coaching staff. Did we sell it to the players? Yes, we put a tick in. Do the players understand it from what we see, our eyes test? Yes. Are they able to apply it? Have we seen enough evidence that they can apply it? Yes. Have they ability to recall it 5-on-5 in practice? No, not to a level that's acceptable. And then are they able to execute it and deliver it in aggressive competition, which is your preparation games? No. So that kind of gave us an audit checklist of where we were with that. So that's the coaches doing it. Sorry, this is the coaches doing it. This one and this one is the coaches doing it. We also got the players to do this. So the top right-hand corner of your screen and the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, that's us as coaches auditing where we're at with some of these concepts, and there was more. And then we got the players to do it. We asked the players in groups of 3 and 4 to do it, and we kind of collated it together, and this is what they came up with. So that would give you an idea. Like, let's look at this one here. So us as coaches, setting and receiving screens, yeah, we sold it. The player, we think the players valued it. Deliver of quality we thought it was good. Their execution in 5-on-5 wasn't good, or in games it wasn't good either. They said their understanding of it was poor. We thought their understanding of it was good, so it brought us back to actually what we think is not always what they think. And we've got to find out what do they feel and think in order for us to make it better. We've got to understand where are they at with this stuff in order for us to drill the right things, to provide the practices that add value to them as players and us as a team. Paul, will I stop there, or do you want me to continue?
What you've left, because like there's a lot of there's a bit out coming in, but it's geared towards maybe a couple of other slides. But I'm keen on asking something on this, in terms of, so like, I think as coaches we think, as you said, we feel that the players know what we've gotten across to them. This is a great template for like seeing that there might be disparity in what we think and what the players think. How often, would you do this, and the time frame leading into competition, when would you do it also?
Well, I think it depends. Like, you can build an environment with players where they flourish, or you can build an environment with players where they feel restricted. And there's a fear element where they're like, if a player is afraid, and Paul, plenty of players have been afraid to say stuff to me in the past, and it's probably the most important. This thing that's on the front of my mind most now, and I would hope Adrian O'Sullivan, who you guys all know really well, would say that he felt safe or enough around me last year to say how he felt about things from a playing perspective, and to say how he felt about me as a coach. And you can create the environment where that's alive and well, or you can create the environment where they're afraid to voice what they say and feel. And I'm not talking about an emotional response. I'm talking about when you sit down with a player and you ask him these thoughts. How brave and how comfortable and how psychologically safe is that player to tell you how he truly feels, because that's going to be the game changer to help you coach them better. That's just my thoughts and feelings about it. So it depends on how you set the environment up, Paul. But what we would do last year and what we did with the past couple of years with the national team, we did it with the Rockets. And some of you might have heard me say this before, but on WhatsApp, we'd ask the players to review their performance, the team's performance, and the coach's performance. And everybody sees that on the WhatsApp group, and the coaches would always put their review last. And for the first month or two, or whenever or however long, a national team first camp or two, players are always going to say what they think you want them to say, and then you go and break down that barrier and you tell them the value of that you want to get better as a coach, and what they see and feel and think is important, and that it's a platform for all of us to grow, not just the players. And honesty is a big part of it. And you have your one-to-ones and you find ways to break down those barriers that exist, which is fine. So we would do that on a regular basis. After every practice, Paul, we didn't do what's on your screen right now, but what they did is they'd fill out the WhatsApp. I've got them all, actually. We saved them all. We put them on an Excel document, all their feedback after every practice about how they thought. And it wasn't after every practice, because we'd have 2 days in camps. It'd be the end of the day, and some players would put some stuff in there. You kind of go, actually, that's a red flag. I got to pick that up later because there's something wrong there, and it highlight. And then other times it would highlight you what they know. It was like an informal way of assessing what they know, because when they struggled with stuff, they would say why generally. So, but what you see on the screen, we've done it. If we had 5 camps in the summer, we might do it twice. We might get to the end of the Euros and do it. There was no plan for when we did it. This one that's on your screen right now, I think we were halfway through a campaign of a 5-week campaign, and we did it halfway through, and we probably did another one at the end. I remember that year. But there's different ways to do it, but it doesn't matter what way you do it, Paul. There's 101 ways to skin a cat, as they say. But do they feel safe enough? Excuse me. Do they feel safe enough to tell you the truth and to be honest about? Because a player to write down and say, actually, what am I looking at here? Let me say, basic one, motion offense. A player at our level would be afraid to say, I don't understand that. But the reality is, a lot of them won't understand it. So it's how you set it up, I think, is more important than how often you do it or what do you actually do with it.
Good point. Couple of quick hit ones here. Based on something earlier, is the triple threat dead from what you've seen, if that's the case?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because Marskov, who's an academy in this country, they went to the EYBL this summer, which is like a European Championship club tournament. And if you watch Lithuania national team play, they are very much catch, square up, triple threats. And Paul, I don't have to tell you how good those guys are. So It's not dead. I think we have to be a little bit careful as well, because trendy is you'd associate the word trendy with being cool. And I think when things become trendy, people do them very often with the wrong motive. And I think, stuff like tagging up or stab dribble or that type of stuff, or Spanish screen, or, I think our flow offense, and I think when stuff becomes trendy, you got to be very mindful of, does this suit the team I have? Does this suit the level of the player I have? And it's trendy now to play off the catch, 0.5 second offense and all that stuff, and 0 second offense. But at the age and stage of the players you have, are they ready for that? And do you know what stage and age to put that stuff in? And I think it's a bit easier with the 0 second play of playing off the catch. Is probably a little bit easier than maybe some of the other stuff I'm talking about, like tagging up. But I don't think triple threat is dead, because I've seen it alive and well by a lot of European teams.
Very good.
In my personal opinion, Paul, I teach players to catch them, get it on the floor as quick as they can. And you know what? If they decide to shoot it, by the time the ball comes up, it'll be, we've measured it. I say we measured it, eye test. It didn't slow them down to catch, square up and shoot, and to catch, stab, dribble, shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess we teach on it like on the catch, quick catch, go, catch, shoot, catch, pass, and I suppose that's what you're saying. Like it's a triple threat on the catch. Essentially, is possibly what you might be indicating or something like that. You know.
Anything else?
In your scouts, do you focus on actions or schemes?
We focus on like the go-to actions. Really, we don't go through on game day. We don't go through the sets. We'll talk about what the action is. So, for example, Finland, when the ball goes in the post, they will have two cutters every time, and it's like a wheel action every time. When you look at Serbia, like a lot of their go-to actions will be, and again, Paul, it's against us, so we're kind of doing the devil's advocate scout. Like, we're not really looking at like, well, you know what, they did this against Turkey, but we don't play like Turkey. So, we'll look at a game like if we're preparing for, say, Serbia, we'll look at them. We'll hope to find a game that they played against France in the preparation. How did they play against France, who were ultra aggressive? How did they play against France when they switched, fours, and when we switched outside and inside? So like you look at Serbia, and it's very much a high-low game. They'll operate around the high post, but they'll kill you down inside, and it'll often be because of the two bigs playing together, not the guard and bigs playing together. So for us, it was very much about, okay, what's their identity, what's their style of game, and what's the players go to, what are the players effective at? I asked actually a couple of GB seniors. I asked them, and I asked a couple from 16s to seniors. I asked like a group, just I guess a random group, and I asked them, what do you take? And in the Commonwealth Games, actually, I asked a couple of the Commonwealth Games players after the tournament when we were hanging around. We got knocked out by Canada. We got blown out by Canada in the quarterfinal, and we had to hang around a week, which was awful, by the way. It sounds nice, but it was awful. And I remember asking a group of the guys, and they all gave me the same answer: the GB guys, the Commonwealth Games guys, the junior under 16s guys. What do you look for? What value is the scout for you? So when the coaches go through the video of players, then they go through the video of the team tactics, and then they give you a paper report on the team, and then a paper report on the players with a picture, and then the offensive tendencies, defensive tendencies. When they give you all that stuff, does it talk to me, like, does it carry value? What do you get from it? Is it or waste, is a waste of time? Like, just be honest. And I had a strong enough relationship with the likes of Carl Wheatle or Andy Thompson, or some of those other guys were saying that the thing that stands out, the thing they look at the most and take the most from, is not the offensive sets, it's not the actions, it's actually the skill set of the guy they have to guard. And I remember Carl Wheatle saying to me one time, I just want to know what the one or two guys I'm gonna have to guard, I want to know what they look like, and I just want to know what do they do. Is he a right-hand player, left-handed player? Does he like to play off the right block or the left block? Is he a long closeout guy? Is he a catch and shoot? Is he a 50-50? So that's what the players were saying to us, but yet we still go along with paralysis by analysis. I'm picking everything. But I think last year, Paul, we peeled back a lot of the stuff we did, and it was the most enjoyable European Championships we had as coaches, because we just threw out a lot of the stuff we were doing, and we really just went harder on and deeper on stuff. We limited the amount of things we looked at, and we got more value back from it, I feel.
Very good. So maybe kind of bringing everything together now.
Yeah.
We spoke about like what does a player require to become a European level player. So I suppose 3 questions in one respect.
Yeah.
How do we create the consistency of a player to make an Irish national team? Because like when we do it, we talk about like this guy is a 6 game out of 8 guy, this guy is a 4 game out of 8 guy, this guy might be a 3 game. So we kind of identify how many consistencies. We would like obviously every player to be at least a 5 or 6 game guy, but that's not always possible. So what do players need to be consistent for it to be an Irish international? What skill set do they require? And what sort of mentality do they need?
Great questions. And I'm going to answer those questions, but I'm going to preempt it by saying, how good is the coach? Because if you're not good enough to bring out of a player what the potential he has, It doesn't matter what potential he has. It doesn't matter what characteristics he has or she has. It doesn't matter what their competencies are. In a pressure cooker environment like a European Championship, in a very shortened window where they have to trust you and all that, all those other personal soft skills, all those dynamics that fit in there. If you ultimately don't have the skill set to get it out of them, then you ain't then they may not deliver it anyway. So I'd like to preempt that one by saying, well, should we not ask the same question about coaches? What skill set does that national team head coach have that can get the best out of those players? So that would preempt all that, Paul. But to answer your question, we look for 4 things. Well, I say we. I got to be careful here. I'm not left to my own devices, but I guess on one hand I kind of am in terms of what I'll do with the national team. But we look for 4 things in players, and one is competitiveness. If they're not competitive in a European Championship environment, it don't matter how good they are in your world, in the club system, even at senior men's level, it doesn't matter. The European Championship's a different beast. Why? You play every day. There's no day off, you know. And on the day you play, you practice in the morning, you know, and then there, cognitively, I'll get onto that bit in a minute. There's so much to digest, and you're out of your comfort zone, and you're not going home to your own bed. And if you're like us in Macedonia with the under-16s, you know, you're eating plain chicken and rice every day for your lunch and dinner. And you know, if you don't like that, then you go hungry, and then your energy levels are low. And you know, you might be in a hotel where there's no aircon, like we were in Macedonia at that time, and we ended up bronze medaling that year. And I'll put it down to the fact the environment made us tougher. There was only 5 teams in that hotel, and I think that the other hotel, which you guys were in, I believe at the time, Joey Boylan was the head coach. We went there on our day off, and it was a very lavish hotel. But where we stayed was up in the mountains, and they used to pick us up and drop us off, and there'd be no door in the bus because there was no aircon. So that was the aircon. You know, 35, 36, 37 degrees of heat. You know, the hotel looked like a Chinese torture chamber or something from a movie. You know, the movie with Jack Nicholson comes to mind. You know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. An environment like that, I felt like we were in, but it was sunny. And you know, I put that down to a contributing factor for us winning. And you know, we had tough players, but the first thing is a competitive spirit. I won't take anybody on the national team, Paul, unless they've got a competitive spirit. And you know, I got to backtrack on that. I've had to actually, and it's not been good, and it hasn't worked out. And I tell players all the time in the first camp, if you're going to give up easy, if you've got a history of doing that, or if you struggle with struggle, then you know you're not going to flourish with us. You're probably going to sink. And you know, it kind of goes back to, you know, you like the Navy SEALs say, you don't rise to the occasion. You know, you sink to the level of how you're built, and you sink to the level of your everyday habits, and you sink to the level of your training. You know, you don't rise to any occasion. It doesn't happen. And so competitive spirit, Paul, I'm giving you a long answer to your question, but competitive spirit is number one. If you don't have it, I would recommend not taking any player to European Championship. That's just my experience, especially Division A, Paul. There's no room for it. You know, none of these teams have that weakness. They're all go-getters. Second thing is technical skill. You have to be able to handle pressure. You have to be able to handle pressure in the full court with the ball in your hands. You have to be able to handle pressure in the low post, in the high post. You have to be able to handle pressure when someone closes you out. You know, the technical skill set. You know, we tell our guys all the time, and you know, in comparison to the guys at the Euros, we're not technically skilled at all in comparison. But that's the only thing that survives, because why, Paul? When you get to that level of Division A and under 20s, and then you see with the seniors, the physical capabilities normally balance themselves out. Everybody's physical, everybody's quick, everybody's long, everybody's fast. But so what am I saying? The technical skill set, your ability to play off the catch, your ability to get open, your ability to you know, and I'm talking about decision making inside that technical skill. And that's the third thing. Leads me on to the third thing is the tactical awareness. You know, can you make decisions for yourself? Have you the ability to self-manage, to problem solve live under pressure when it matters the most? And the guard I had this year, you know, a lot of people said he shouldn't have taken him. The guard I had 2 years ago when we got to the final of Division B, everyone here in this country said you shouldn't take him. Well, those kids, number one, I'm backtracking a bit. Those kids had an edge about them and a competitiveness about them that was better than everybody else. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, and even this year, some people might say, but you left a more skillful player behind. Yes, because why? What was number one on our list? Competitive edge and a competitive spirit. And both of these guys had it in abundance, whereas some of the players I didn't take didn't have that. Now, those players had technical ability, yes, but they didn't meet the first criteria, which is the foundational, which is the core of the players we're looking for. The third thing is the tactical awareness. Do you understand spacing? Do you understand time? Do you understand movement and efficiency of movement? And are you able to self-regulate? So now we're into the mental side of it a little bit. Do you know your strengths and weaknesses? And are you comfortable with your weaknesses being exposed? Can you manage your emotional state? So that's number 3. You know, you're talking about the tactical and then the mindset. And the last thing we look for, Paul, the last thing we look for is speed. And it's a very generic term, but we look for players who are quick because of the style of game that we play. And I say this every year. And there's, by the way, when I say speed, I mean it from 2 aspects. I'll explain those in a second. But I say this every year. We cut players from the national team. We deselect players from the national team who are very good basketball players. And we also bring players to the European Championship who sit on the bench, who don't play a lot of minutes, who are really, really high-level basketball players in this country. So the reality is this. We don't pick the 10 best scorers or the 12 best scorers. We pick the 12 best players that we think that can win as a team. And one component that we do look for in all of them is speed. So what do I mean by speed? I mean speed of body. So we're talking physical. And then I mean speed of mind. What do I mean by speed of mind? Yes, decision making is one. But the other thing is, the other speed we're looking for mentally is how quick can you get over yourself? Like how quick can you get back up when you fail? And how quick can you get over the fact that you may not be the same player you are at you won't be the same player that you are at your club? How quick can you get over the fact that you're going to be the 10th guy in this team? So how quick can you get over yourself is also one of the things we look for inside in that speed component. So they would be the 4 things, Paul.
That's I think that's something that we really need to kind of emphasize to our club coaches to get those guys ready for when they're preparing for academies, you know, regional academies leading into or starting with 16s. You know, and you spoke about the level of player, and I think one of the reasons why we perform better at 18s instead of 16s is that they don't realize the level of competitiveness because of the lack of quality that we have here. And that's not just being disrespectful. We just don't have the level to hold our guys accountable for pressure cooker, as you mentioned, pressure cooker situations to be ready for the European Championships, because they might get 2 games a year where they might have to play in that pressure cooker. Whereas in Central Europe and Scandinavian, close down to Russia, they're getting that on a every 2 or 3 weekly basis. You know, and I think that might be the difference as well in handling those pressure cooker situations.
So let me add to that real quick, Paul, and I won't stay on it too long. I'll be 20 seconds with this point. Mm-hmm. That then begs the question of, do your under 18 players, and you don't have to answer it, but do your under 18 players play at the highest level in your country? And I look at some of our guys. We went to Division A 2 years ago, where some of our guys were playing in. Sorry, let me retract. We went to under 16s Division A a couple of years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, whatever. And 2 of our starting 5 were playing under 16 club basketball. They weren't playing up under 18s. Their club was keeping them under 16. So that has to be an avenue and a direction that I don't know if you guys are, but we definitely have to be forcing our guys under 16s, under 18s national team players. They have to play up senior level basketball because it's the closest thing we can put them in that gives them more pressure.
But including this summer, of the 24 players that were going to be selected this summer and last, 21 were involved in senior basketball, either Super League, Division 1, or in the States.
That's excellent.
You know, and we were getting to that level. So I think that's something that we have to kind of look at as well. Last question, Georgiego, you might remember him. Last question, when Alan speaks about technical skill, should we be drilling all players at all positions from a young age?
I would answer that by asking you, tell me the reason why not. Sell me the value of not doing it.
Brilliant answer. Brilliant answer. Alan, Went on longer than expected, but I think some great nuggets. I've taken about 6 pages of notes, and I'm doing international teams 13 years. So I think everybody's gotten something. I'm looking at the list, and we've had some high-level people checking in, including international coaches and international players and guys from abroad. So I think we've gotten a lot out of this, and I think it's something that we really need to digest and look at as a nation for getting our club players ready for international basketball. So I can only thank you for your time. I know you're on a bunch of calls every day. So thanks so much for offering your time, and I look forward to speaking with you again, and I hope everybody out there got it. As I said, lit the candle for our HSC workers here and abroad. So stay safe. We've gotten indications we could be on the right track, but we can only do those indications if we keep staying at home, guys, and washing our hands and doing all those things that we should be doing. So stay safe, everybody, and thanks so much for your time. And
Hey, Paul, just a quick one there, please. Paul, I'm an Irishman through and through, as you know, with green blood, and one thing I feel very somber about is I'm not connected enough back home with you guys. If anybody wants to reach out, or I can help in any way, whatever it may be, please connect, because I'm very eager not to do more with you guys, just to be involved with you more. That's all. So I love what you've done with this, and I really, really cherish the opportunity to come on here and speak to you guys. So thank you, Paul, as well, and thank you for those who tuned in.
Thanks a million, Alan. Stay safe, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you on Tuesday evening for Danny Nelson, Thursday evening for Tommy Manny, and then we have that Mike Bree and the referees the week after, including the Sunday night, which will be announced. All 5 dates and speakers will be announced tomorrow morning. Thanks a million, guys. Stay safe. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Paul.